Hello everybody, this is Kerry with Trail Traveler, and today we are starting at the beginning. This is GMRS for beginners. This is going to be everything that you need to know to understand what GMRS radios are, which is General Mobile Radio Service, why you might want GMRS radios, what are pros, cons, all that good stuff, how to get licensed, everything you need to know in this video right here. Let's get started. First off, I want to thank Retivis for sponsoring this video. Big thanks to them for helping me out with this. We've got their RA87 radio, their mobile unit here, which is a fantastic mobile unit on sale right now. Check it out. And this is their newer HA1G handy talkie. Both of these are excellent radios. So big thanks to Retivis for sponsoring this video. So what are the benefits of GMRS? Well, if we compare GMRS radios to the other most popular options out there, such as CB radio and ham radio, it has better range and clarity than CB. So that's a big plus. CB radio just never had much in the way of range, although yes, I know you could do things like put on amplifiers and huge antennas and sideband and stuff, but that's not really legal now, is it? So an out-of-the-box CB radio only has a few watts of power compared to something like an R87, which has 40 watts of power. So big difference. Now, compared to ham radio, GMRS doesn't require you to take a test. There is a license fee. It's $35 for 10 years, covers your immediate family. We'll discuss more about that later. The radios are fairly inexpensive. I mean, this is a high-end handy talkie unit, $65. The mobile stations are very inexpensive. So in comparison to a good ham radio, GMRS radios are on the inexpensive side. Now, on the very low end, you have FRS, Family Radio Service, walkie-talkies. Now, they look very similar to this, and they have usually up to 15 channels, but they're much lower power. They're 0.5 watt compared to 5 watt. So a lot lower on the wattage spectrum. However, GMRS radios are compatible with FRS. In fact, the first 15 channels that you can dial into with either one of these radios are the FRS channels. From 16 to 22 are the GMRS channels. So a GMRS radio is compatible with an FRS radio. Now, another big advantage for some people, again, not everybody, but some people, is that you can use these GMRS radios with repeaters. So if there's repeaters in your area, and in a lot of major metropolitan areas, there are GMRS repeaters, these can be used with those repeaters to get exceptional range. For example, with just even the low end, lower power, HA1G, and definitely with the RA87, from right here in my front yard, I can reach a repeater down in Denver, which is right at 30 miles away. Now that's going to rebroadcast that signal from a antenna that's up on top of a water tower at 50 watts, and I'm going to have another 50, 60, 70 miles worth of range. So I can talk pretty much from northern Colorado all the way down to basically Colorado Springs and stuff with a little radio because of the use of repeaters. Now, ham radios can use repeaters as well, but CBs can't. So there's that. Now let's get into some common questions. How much range can you actually get? Well, that's going to depend on a lot of factors, mostly line of sight. Now, we're not skipping off the troposphere and doing all kinds of weird stuff. We're talking line of sight communications. And it really just depends on how clean that line of sight is, honestly. We have tested little tiny wristwatch GMRS radios that we were able to get almost 3 miles of range with. We can get 5, 6, 7 miles of range very easily with a handy talkie, depending on conditions. With a mobile unit like this, we can get a lot more range, 60, 70 miles, depending on those conditions. Now, if this is sitting at ground level and I'm trying to get through miles and miles of buildings or trees or whatever, that range is going to get cut down significantly. If I have a clean line of sight, well, then I can get a lot more range. So the distance that you're going to get is truly dependent on your environment and what's in between you and the receiving side, or the transmitting side and your side. Depending what's in between, you could get pretty short range, you can get some pretty phenomenal range. It really just depends. Now, we mentioned repeaters a little bit, so I'll touch on that again. That's just going to be something similar to like this Retivus, which actually, if you take a second one and connect a data cable, one is a receiver and one is a transmitter, so you can use 2 of these to set up a repeater station. There's also dedicated repeater boxes that you can get that take a signal in and then rebroadcast it out. So that's what a repeater is. It repeats your signal. So a common question is, why not just go to ham radio? Well, there's a few reasons for that, honestly. For a lot of people, it's simply the license requirements. You have to take a fairly technical test to get a ham radio license. Now, a lot of people are going to say, but it's so easy, just study. You know what? I've studied this over and over and over again. And because the material on the test is just absolutely not relevant to anything that I want to do, I have trouble memorizing it for the sake of the test. It's ohms and watts and amps and antennas and all kinds of things that you have to know in order to pass the test. And I simply struggle on it, not because I'm not intelligent, it's just because I know that the material is irrelevant to what I want to do. So also, depending on your use, ham radio may be overkill. So again, those radios are typically going to be more expensive. There's more to learn. There's the test to take, all that kind of stuff. And if you're just on a trail like we are, trying to do vehicle-to-vehicle communications, ham radio is probably overkill for that situation, where GMRS is an ideal setup for that. So now, if we look at what are people on the trails using, well, GMRS is way more popular. Now, I'll put some statistics here. A poll that we recently took on the Trail Traveler YouTube channel that asked what type of radio that you're using. GMRS was far more popular than all the other options combined. So it blew away all the competition out there. If we go and we hit a trail and there's people there that we've never met before, it's a very safe bet that they're either going to have GMRS radios or they may have FRS radios, in which case we can still talk to them. So either way, GMRS is definitely a lot more popular in the off-roading community. Now, one phrase, I think I heard it from somebody, but it's worth repeating. GMRS is a tool, ham is a lifestyle. So if you want to have crazy power, reach people all over the world, help in emergency situations, then get your ham license. It's an excellent choice. If you just want simple, affordable, short-range communication, then GMRS is a better bet. So they each have their place in the world, where CB these days really doesn't have a place, but GMRS and ham, they're close enough in some things and they're different enough that each one does have some pretty specific use cases. Now let's talk about getting a license. Who can get a license? Well, there are some requirements for getting on the license. The applicant must be 18 years or older, not a representative of a foreign government. Licenses today are only available to individuals, meaning no new businesses. Now, in the past, I believe it ended around 1987, you could get a license for a business. And if you have one, those are typically grandfathered in, but that's a whole nother story. There's no test, just a payment. It's $35. It's good for 10 years. And the license does cover you and your immediate family. Now, there's really no definition of what immediate family is, whether it also includes your uncles and aunts and cousins. But I'm like, you know what? To me, immediate is one removed from you. So it's your brothers, your sisters, your parents, your children. That to me is immediate family. And $35 a year, it's $3 and, it's it's around $3 a month, right? Whatever it is, $35 a year for 10 years. Yeah, so it's $3.50 per year, right? It's dead cheap. So now there are some rules that you have to adhere to. Mainly if an FCC representative asks to inspect your equipment, so that's your handhelds, your mobiles, whatever, you have to let them do it. That is the law, right? So you have to make any of your equipment and any records you might have available when asked. Now, you're not allowed to send any messages in connection with any activity which is illegal as a federal, state, or local law. That makes some sense. No false or deceptive messages. So don't lie about something. Don't say there's an accident somewhere where there's not, things like that. No coded messages with hidden meanings. Think this has to do with like hiding illegal activities type things. Now, if you're familiar from the CB world, the 10 codes, 1020, where's your location, 10200, 104, all those are permissible. And if you want a list of those 10 codes, I will put a link in the description below, but they're not that common because we just don't have some of the technical restrictions that we had with CB. You get really good quality, so having to abbreviate things isn't really necessary. Now, you're not allowed to play any music, whistling, sound effects, or material that is meant to amuse or entertain others. You're not allowed to have any ads or make offers for the sale of goods or services. No ads for political candidates or political campaign. No international distress signals like Mayday unless a vehicle is in immediate danger. Now, of course, a lot of rules go out the window when there is immediate danger. There's no communicating with stations in the amateur radio service. Well, you can't because they're different frequencies, or any unauthorized station or to any foreign station. Well, if you're here in the United States, you're not going to reach a foreign station with your GMRS. There's just not enough power. No continuous or uninterrupted transmissions unless it's dealing with an emergency. That's just keying down and not letting up. So if there's immediate safety of life or property, then you again, a lot of bets are right off. And you're not allowed to do messages that connect to a public address system. And you must identify yourself using your assigned call sign, and we'll talk more about that later, on a periodic basis and at the end of transmissions. So again, we'll talk about that when we get into using a GMRS radio. So once you have a series of transmissions or after 15 minutes, you have to say your call sign. It's pretty simple, but something that you do need to keep in mind. Now, some of the repeaters that you might connect to, every 15 minutes, you might hear like a Morse code coming from them. That's their station identifier. And a radio cannot put out more than 50 watts. So again, we have 5 watts, we have 40 watts, we have 50 watts. We have radios that have different power outputs, but the maximum that you're allowed to do is 50 watts. So how do you get your license? Well, first you need an FCC registration number, or an FRN as it's called. And to do that, you need to register with the CORS service. The link below here and in the description, make it easy for you. It's of course, it's a government website. They make things not as simple as they could be. Now, I think that usually takes a day or so. Once you have your FRN, you can go apply for your license. Again, new link below, and in the description, you log in with your FRN number, you pay your fee, and you complete the process. And at that point, again, a couple days, 48, 72 hours later, you'll receive, your call sign. Mine is WREL 483. Now let's talk about choosing a ham radio. What is important to you, right? There's a couple different things to look at when trying to decide. Well, first off, do you want something handheld for portability? Do you want something that's going to be permanently mounted somewhere, like an RA-87? Is it going to be a base station, which actually with the RA-87, you can get a little stand for it and just make this a base station in your house, run the antenna outside to a nice antenna, and you've got yourself a nice little base station. So depending on your goals there, you might want to choose one versus the other simply based on form factor. Now, what about power output? Well, if you're just going vehicle to vehicle when you're on a trail, or you want to keep hikers in contact with each other, your kids are playing around at a park, or when you're out camping and you want to just hand them a radio, well, you know what? Something like a 5-watt radio is probably going to be sufficient for those needs. Now, another thing you might want to consider is making sure that a radio has privacy codes. And this is going to eliminate you from hearing other people. It's not going to eliminate other people from hearing you, but you won't hear other people. So any background noise, any other radio transmissions are going to be filtered out with privacy codes. And very often, if you're connecting to repeaters, you're going to need to use privacy codes to connect to those repeaters. And some of them are going to take one code for the transmission and another code for receiving, and that's called split tones. And again, not every radio supports split tones. So if you're going to be connecting to repeaters, you probably want to make sure that your radio, such as these, supports split tones. Now, does the radio have repeater channels? If you're never going to use a repeater, don't worry about it, right? If you're going to set up a bunch of repeaters, well, then you might want to see how many pre-programmed repeater channels they have, or make sure that there's enough extra programmability to add however many you want. Now, for example, the HA1G has 8 pre-programmed repeater channels, and you can go in and tweak the privacy codes to make it work. But there's also 220 extra programmable channel slots, so you could add tons of repeaters from all over the country. Now, you might want to look at some extra features that different radios have. How about water resistance? Well, again, these are sitting here on the desk, so I'm going to use them as examples, right? The HA1G is IP67 rated, which means it can withstand a tremendous amount of dust, and it can sit in a meter of water for 30 minutes and still be fully functional. That's really cool. For me, that's important. I drop more radios in the snow and mud than probably most other people combined. I'm really klutzy with my radios. I'm always dropping them. And so having a rugged radio that can withstand water, very important to me. A lot of them have FM radio features. Well, if you are just sitting at the beach or something and you've got your radio and you want to listen to FM, great. A lot of them have it. Me, I don't care about FM radio, so that's not a feature that I'm interested in. A lot of them have NOAA channels. Now that's weather channels, weather alert channels. So you could set up, there's dual channels on here on both of these. You could set up one for your communications channel and another to receive the NOAA weather alerts. Now, some new radios that are hitting the market right now have some GPS features, so you can broadcast your location to someone else and get it back and figure out where people are. And that's kind of a cool feature for hikers or your kids, things like that. I haven't been able to use one of those radios yet, so I can't speak to how well it works, but it's something that may be coming down the future, something to look at. Now, do you need that dual monitoring? I've mentioned it a couple times, right? These have basically two separate radios in them, an A and a B. I can be talking and listening on one, and I can be listening on the other, and I can switch over and talk on that one. So that's kind of a cool feature in certain situations where you want to have different conversations going. Maybe you want to be connected to two different repeaters. There's a lot of reasons to have two different radios in there. How about programmable buttons? The HA1G, along with some other newer ones, this is I think going to be a common feature moving forward are having some programmable buttons on here. There's 2 here on the side, 1 on top. I use one of the ones on the side for a push to talk button for the B channel. So I can hit the main push to talk on the A channel. I can push the side button to talk on the B channel. That's a very, very handy feature for us, and we do use that. Now, if you watch later on when our review of this radio comes out, I discuss why that's an important feature for us. Okay? How about using your radio properly? So I like to recommend that you get some tape or a label maker and put your call sign right on the radio so that you can remember it. Remember, when you're starting off, you need to broadcast your call sign. You need to say it every 15 minutes. So having it handy until you memorize it is not a bad thing. So in practice, you should start off with your call sign and what you are trying to do. Are you trying to reach somebody? Are you trying to get a check? Are you, just announcing that you're available to talk? What is it that you're trying to do? So now, for example, I may want to check out a new radio, see if the radio is working. Do I have it set up right? Especially when it comes to the repeaters. So I'll make sure I'm on the right channel and everything. And I'll go WRAL 483, radio check, please. Odds are someone's going to reply, assuming I have the radio set up properly, and tell me how do I sound and whether I'm coming across okay. So my call sign, what am I trying to do? Right? Now, I may just want to call for someone specifically, someone that I know that's out there who may be on the radio. I may go WRAL 483, WRFG 645. Do you copy? So I'm specifically asking for someone else. Now, how do you know what your friends' call signs are? Well, they need to tell you, right? I can't really help you with that one. They need to tell you what their call sign is. Now, often we'll give traffic reports, or at least mention our location, so if somebody has a question about the traffic in that area, they can ask that question. And that may be something like WRAL 483, southbound I-25 from Fort Collins to Denver, listening on 600, standing by. And if someone wants to know, hey, how's the traffic in Thornton, they can ask me. So there's ways of communicating, but you have to follow the rules and make sure that you're doing things properly. Especially when you are using a repeater, because those people will get very, very picky and call you out on it. So make sure that you're following the rules. Make sure that you have your call sign handy, that you state it when you start up, when you hit that 15-minute mark or less, and when you're done with the conversation. And that could be as simple as WRAL 483, I'm out. And that way everyone knows not to ask for you because you've just turned off your radio. Now let's keep talking about repeaters for a minute. How do you find repeater information? In Colorado, once you have your GMRS license, join the Front Range GMRS group on Facebook. Once they accept you, you'll get access to the website with the repeater information that they have, as well as radio files to make programming many popular radios super, super simple. Now they maintain, I think it's around 6 or 7 repeaters now, covering most of the central corridor of Colorado. Now there's also websites that you can go to and get nationwide information. There's repeaterbook.com. Just click on the US GMRS repeaters link. You'll get a lot of help on finding local repeaters there. Another website is www.mygmrs.com. Again, they have a list of available repeaters. So not too hard to find repeaters in your area. Follow the directions that it gives you on how to set it up, and you're good to go. So hopefully this was a good introduction into GMRS radios, why GMRS over other types of radios, how to get things up and running, how to get your license, and some of the basic rules that we need to follow. Now again, thank you to Retivus for sponsoring this video. Be sure and check out their RA87 bass unit and their HA1G handy talkie. These are both excellent radio choices. big thanks again to them for sponsoring this video. If you have any questions about GMRS, be sure and ask in the comments below, and I'll do my best to get the answers for you. So thanks for watching, everybody. This has been Kerry with Trail Traveler. Stay safe out there. We'll see you on the trails.